America's pastime. For a sport to really earn this nickname, it has to transcend the entertainment landscape of American pop culture. It has to be a staple of American life. And for most of the 20th century, baseball was exactly that. It was beloved nationwide. Star players of the sport, from Babe Ruth to Derek Jeter, were genuine celebrities and household names for the longest time in America. But ever since the turn of the 21st century, baseball has been slowly losing its popularity in America, particularly in compared to the NFL and NBA, the two more dominant leagues in the country. In 2023, the AL champion Texas Rangers defeated the NL champion Arizona Diamondbacks in 5 games to win their first World Series title in franchise history. According to Nielsen, these teams come from the 5th and 11th biggest sports TV market sizes in the country, respectively. If nothing else, it should have pulled in a respectable number of people watching. Instead, it was the least viewed World Series in television history, drawing in only 9.11 million viewers. Games 1, 2, 3, and 4 were the least watched. Games 1, Game 2, Game 3, and Game 4 in World Series history. Now, okay, maybe the series just wasn't entertaining. After all, 3/5 of the games were decided by 4 runs or more. Not really close games by baseball terms. And these games do need to keep people interested, but rather than being an outlier, the 2023 World Series was following a very disheartening trend for Major League Baseball. The 4 least watched World Series in television history are 2023, 2020, 2021, and 2022 in that order. Combining the average viewership equals 42.37 million viewers across the 4 years combined. Just by itself, the 1978 World Series between the New York Yankees and LA Dodgers averaged 44.28 million viewers. Baseball popularity is at an all-time low, and Major League Baseball knows this. Baseball will never be the most popular sport in America again, but that doesn't have to matter as long as the league can stay healthy and continue drawing in new viewers. But in order to do this, like any other company, they have to stay relevant, and one way to do that is by embracing change. Embracing change isn't the easiest thing to do for anybody, but it's especially tough for baseball because of the rich history and traditions that have come from nearly 150 years of existence. But through trials and tribulations, baseball is getting there, thanks to the embrace of new technology in the sport. Baseball has helped technology gain relevance in America in the past, with games being broadcast on radio in the 1920s, then on television in the 40s and 50s. Now, it's time for technology to help baseball gain relevance in America. 2002, Oakland, California. The Oakland Athletics are in a tough spot as a team. The team is about to lose 3 of their best players to big spenders in free agency such as the New York Yankees and Boston Red Sox. Unable to compete financially, A's executive Billy Beane has to find another way to build a team with aspirations of making the postseason. That's when he turned to sabermetrics, a new way of evaluating players. Up to this point, scouts and front offices would judge a player's abilities with a combination of simple statistics, such as batting average, runs batted in, and home runs for hitters, and wins and losses for pitchers, as well as the eye test, which lets scouts decide if a player can look as good on the field as they do on paper. But advanced sabermetrics gave Beane a whole new insight on evaluating players that, at the time, was ridiculed and scoffed at by the rest of the industry and fans alike. But his decision paid off, as the Athletics went on to win their division that year. The depictions of the initial introduction of sabermetrics to the industry were depicted in Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game, published by Michael Lewis in 2003, and then later turned into the 2011 film with the same name. I'd highly recommend the film to anybody, regardless of their interest in baseball, which goes into much more detail that I'm going to go into today. But the revolution was on. Moneyball was just the beginning of embracing technology in baseball. In 2006, MLB introduced us to PitchFX. Here's how it works. According to Fangraphs, the system, using 2 mounted cameras, tracks the velocity, movement, release point, spin, and pitch location for every pitch thrown in baseball, allowing pitches and pitchers to be analyzed and compared at a detailed level. In 2015, this evolved into StatCast, a system of camera and radar systems that didn't just focus on pitches, but all batted ball data, including but not limited to home run distance, the velocity of the ball as it's hit off the bat, also known as exit velo, and launch angle. This isn't even the tip of the iceberg, it's maybe an ice cube relative to all the other new data that has been introduced. But by now, every front office in baseball was using advanced analytics to put together the best team possible. Teams are trying all sorts of new ways to find hidden gems of players that could offer maximum production at minimal costs. This was the intention. It played out exactly the way MLB wanted it to. But this revolution led to unintended consequences, which I'll get into later on. Technology wasn't just changing the game off the field for front offices, it was changing the game on the field too. In 2014, MLB introduced a new replay review system that, at a manager's discretion, also known as a challenge, would let umpires pause the game to review a call made on the previous play. The manager of each team gets one challenge per game, and if they win their challenge, that means the call gets overturned and they get to keep their challenge. But when they lose their challenge, meaning the call on the field stands, they do not get it back. So managers have to decide tactically how to use these challenges in each game. This was great for MLB. Now, sins of baseball's past couldn't be repeated again, such as the infamous blown call at the end of Armando Galarraga's near-perfect game on June 2nd, 2010. With 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth, the first base umpire called the runner safe on a ground ball that even in real time, everyone could tell was clearly an out. What should have been a special moment for Galarraga and the Detroit Tigers turned into a moment of infamy in sports history. Now, with replay review, calls such as that one would be reviewable, and if the umpires can find conclusive proof within 2 minutes that the call is wrong, they can overturn it before the next batter steps into the batter's box, with the scope of replay review going beyond just wrong, safe, and out calls on the field. It can also be used to challenge hit-by pitches, tag-ups, and catches in the outfield, among many other purposes. These changes have all been good for improving the quality of the game, but MLB still had a problem with drawing in new fans. For most people today, baseball is considered boring and slow. At-bats ending in strikeouts can last for over 5 minutes with absolutely no payoff. It's an investment in time people weren't willing to make anymore. MLB knows this, and they're trying to combat this, which is why in 2023, MLB introduced what I would argue is the most impactful rule change using technology in sports history. I'm talking about the pitch clock. Throughout baseball history, pitchers could use as much time as they wanted in between pitches to get ready for the next pitch. Now, a pitcher has only 15 seconds to throw their next pitch if the bases are empty, and 20 seconds if there are runners on base. Violations lead to an automatic ball in the count, incentivizing pitchers to prepare faster or work with a worse ball strike count, which, they wouldn't. Hitters also have to abide by the new rules, as they have to be engaged and ready to hit by the 8-second mark on the pitch clock, or else they get an automatic strike. In addition, hitters now only get 1 timeout per at-bat, compared to the infinite amount they could have before, and pitchers only get 2 disengages, such as pickoffs or stepping off the mound. And for the most part, it's worked amazingly. In 2021, the average game lasted 3 hours and 10 minutes. In 2023, after the first full season with the pitch clock, that number went all the way down to 2 hours and 40 minutes on average, the lowest since 1985. I went to a couple games last year with my friends who haven't watched baseball in years, and they were all blown away by how much quicker the games were. By introducing new technology to directly change how the game is played, MLB had renewed interest from casual fans who gave up on the game because they understandably ran out of patience for it. World Series ratings be damned, fans were having the most fun they've had at baseball games since they were kids. The benefits of technological change were staggering, but what were the costs? In 2019, Ken Rosenthal and Evan Drellich of The Athletic published an expose on the 2017 World Series champion Houston Astros. They reported that throughout the season and following seasons, the Astros cheated, using a camera mounted in center field to decode catcher signals to pitchers to determine what type of pitch was going to be thrown next. Then, in real time, they would let the batters know by banging on a trash can behind their dugout with a bat. It gave them an advantage that nobody else had because it was illegal. It was the biggest scandal baseball had seen since the 1919 Black Sox scandal, where players accepted bribes to throw games. There were so many consequences and events that followed this that I won't get into here, but the main takeaway from this for us was that this was the first real major consequence of using new technology in the sport. It didn't stop there. Remember earlier when I suggested there were consequences to introducing PitchFX and StatCast to MLB? Well, in 2020, amidst the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement, June Lee of ESPN published an article titled Inside the Rise of MLB's Ivy League Culture. In this article, interviews with executives of modern front offices revealed that a rapidly increasing percentage of new hires in MLB front offices came from Ivy League schools, stemming from the introduction of Moneyball to baseball. Before Moneyball, a lot of front offices were run by former players because, after all, they were the ones with the most knowledge of baseball relative to other people at the time. But when Moneyball, PitchFX, and StatCast were introduced, they became the primary providers of data for front offices to analyze. Now, to get the edge, teams had to hire the best data analysts to interpret the data available. This created a culture where most of the new hires in front offices would come from prestigious schools that were very exclusive and thus inaccessible to a lot of people. One excerpt from the article reads, "Today, many minorities and women working in the sport, from on-field personnel to baseball ops staffers, say the pendulum has swung the other way, with analytically driven executives, mostly white men, no longer representing a fresh approach to the game, but the predominant one." But it's also suggested in the article that it isn't just about finding the best talent when it comes to hiring decisions, but for finding people who think very similar to the owners of MLB teams, who are mainly white men. The case for the owners certainly wasn't helped when the Miami Marlins hired Kim Ng in 2020 to become their general manager, where she would become the first woman to hold that position in all North American pro sports leagues, only to push her out 3 years later when she reportedly learned that they intended to hire a president of baseball operations to work above her, leaving her second in command. And this was after she built a Marlin squad that made the playoffs in 2023 after a 69-93 season the year before in 2022. As of right now, June 13th, 2024, the Marlins sit at 23-45, and over a month ago, already traded their best player in second baseman Luis Arias to the San Diego Padres. So, what do we make of the technological revolution in baseball? On one hand, teams are finding better ways to improve their rosters, which improve the quality of the games themselves. The on-field product is becoming less susceptible to controversy and is becoming more watchable and appealing to casual fans, and improving the experience even for die-hard fans. The sport is very healthy, exemplified by the fact that megastar Shohei Ohtani set the record for the biggest contract in sporting history, signing with the LA Dodgers for $700 million over 10 years. But on the other hand, MLB has been dealing with scandal after scandal after scandal after scandal, not all necessarily related to technological change, but it certainly plays a role. And each new scandal is becoming more and more visible thanks to the increased use of social media today. And for what? The last 4 World Series are the 4 least watched World Series in history. Overall, MLB, like any other company, is growing with the times, and it can be a beautiful thing to watch. But like anything else going through growth, there will always be growing pains. And just as the benefits can be spectacular, so can the failures. It's Major League Baseball's job to make the decisions. It's our job as fans to decide how those decisions will be remembered.